Look at us here on my sofa. This is the way Cafecito with the Coach is supposed to feel, with a friend on the sofa. And Heather is not only my client, she's my friend. And so thank you for taking time. Now you do have time.
Exactly,
You have
exactly.
all the time that you have been working so hard for. So I already did a little intro of, our relationship and who you are, but, tell our listeners who you are, a little bit about your musical background, and what led you to start taking voice lessons in the first place.
So I've always loved music. My dad was a guitar player. We'd sit around and he played, Jim Croce was his thing. Mm-hmm. I know every word to every Jim Croce song, as do my children. And so music, I've always enjoyed it. And I did chorus when I was a little girl. And when I got to high school, little tiny high school, it was either be a jock or be a, chorus band geek kind of thing. I went the jock route, so didn't really do anything else singing wise, and that was pretty much the end of my musical career. And again, always have music in the car, always singing with the kids. And one time, my ex-husband made fun of my singing.
Wow.
And it really sucked me in, and I was so self-conscious. Now, I will definitely say, he apologized 1,000 times for it, and he said he wishes he never said it. So again, I'm not, talking trash about him, but it just stuck with me, and it was just, daggone it, and it was just so hurtful, and I had zero confidence in singing. And then this nice lady at church named Melissa, I saw she had voice lessons, and I saw I think it was a Christmas thing you did with, I think it was like you had 4 or 5 students at that time, and I remember asking you during practice for, it was like a Christmas program. It's like, well, do you take older students? And you said yes. And so my joke, and I've stopped saying it, was she 8 or 7 years old and up, and I was her and up. And
yeah, at the time I was working with littles, and at that time I did have a 7-year-old, a couple of teenagers, and you. And I was so happy to have you. Even though I work with teens and adults now, it's been, you have been there since the start of NBC Performance, as it's known now in Virginia. So I'm so glad you took that step of faith. Now, okay, so you were was it just sheer curiosity at the time, or was there something else propelling you to start taking?
Self-care is along those lines, and reclaiming things. So again, the divorce was hard on me, and don't need to go into details, but it was hard on me. And so I tried to start reclaiming little bits of my life. So my ex-husband was a marathon runner, and he actually it was a beautiful story. He proposed at the start of his first marathon, which was the Shamrock Marathon, and I didn't answer him, which was a yes. We have 2 beautiful children, so all is good at the end. And so after I had my first knee replacement, I was getting myself healthy again, and I reclaimed the Shamrock by walking the half marathon. And I was like, that was my first, I reclaimed me. I'm me.
Let me interrupt. And how old were you at the time when you started doing this?
Golly, 46.
Okay.
So I want to say that was, because I had my knee replacement just shy of my 45th birthday. So maybe 47, late 40s. And then I thought, you know what? I love watching them up on the screen, or not on the screen, on the stage at church, and every girl dreams of being a rock star, and I was going to be Ann Wilson from Heart.
Oh,
yes. I've got dark hair.
Don't we all?
And I thought, what the heck, let me try this. And I had no idea what voice lessons was going to mean to me. It's not just singing. There's so many other things. And so I took the leap. And here I am, however many years later.
Right. So when you started taking with me, you was that right after the divorce? How old were you then? Because we're going, I think, on our 8th or 9th year together.
Yeah, and I'll be 57 on Monday. So,
okay, yeah.
So, I was again like 48, 49.
Yeah. Fantastic. What do you think was the biggest fear in starting?
Stepping out of my comfort zone. Public speaking, I could speak in front of 1 million people with a second's notice. I love public speaking. I'm a weirdo. Singing, totally different. So just kind of pushing and stepping out of my comfort zone to try something new.
Yeah.
And I was the only adult, and I was like, I embrace that. I'm proud of it.
You paved the way. That you paved the way. I love that. You are not doing this as a living. What were you doing at the time? What was your 9 to 5?
I am a retired physical therapist. So a profession that, oh my goodness, I absolutely positively, I love my job. I love what I do. And the reason I retired early was more related to health issues and opportunity. So I'm taking care of myself, but I'm still embracing some of my PT. I have a lecture I'm actually giving tomorrow to the community, and I'm actually planning on doing additional community lectures just as Joe Educator over here, you know, without actually using my license, but I'm using my knowledge base, and so that's exciting for me. I love it.
Oh my gosh, you are a rock star for real. Now, voice lessons for the hobby singer, a lot of people are like, okay, this is my self-care.
Yeah.
This is just something I love to do, or they consider themselves a shower singer. But what would you say surprised you the most when you started? Now, you were getting yourself out of your comfort zone. That can mean so many things to so many people, different people. You know, is it getting on the stage? Is it actually letting someone else hear me sing out loud that is out of the shower? Can you walk us through maybe that first lesson, what you were grappling with, and what were the things that were indeed pushing you out of your comfort zone? What does that mean for you?
The biggest one was, again, reclaiming. I was reclaiming singing, and singing, it's fun.
Yeah.
You know, two things really seem to help with my mental health is music and smell. So, like, I like the candles and the essential oils, but music is so soothing. And in fact, when I had my first knee replacement, the pain was horrendous because of, again, everything's fine. I just had a lot of swelling, and I was in so much pain. The pain meds didn't touch it. Music in my ears, that's what actually helped that relax. So it was just such an enjoyable, I always had fun. If I'm in a bad mood walking in with Melissa, I'm dancing on my way out. And then it kind of morphed to my son. We were taking lessons together.
Yes.
And so that part, it was something to share with him. And that was the other thing too that was important to me, was to have very intentional time with my son. Even though our lessons weren't together, you know, we did the duets, and it was just something, you know, singing in the car together, and it was just, you know, having time with my son while I could, because he was a teenager.
Yes, exactly. And I have 2 teenagers now, so I understand how precious that time is. How would you describe singing as self-care? Because is it only about, for you, the sounds that you made? Were there any other benefits that you had? I mean, you've already spoken a lot about mental health. That's a huge component of, you know, even our philosophy of how we sing together and why it's so important. But what does that look like for you, or what did that look like for you?
The continuing singing, hearing me reach musical things that I never thought I could do. That was one thing. The other thing was the technique and how it worked in every scope of my life. You know, in the breathing techniques, being able to recognize the tension. My stress and anxiety is felt in my jaw. And now when I was like, my ear's hurting. No, Heather, you're clenching. And so I'll use some of the techniques that you taught me. I talked about a half marathon, hitting mile 10, thought I was hitting the wall. And I was like, wait a minute, no, Heather, remember how to breathe. And I changed up my breathing, which dramatically improved my endurance and also kind of eased the anxiety of, holy crap, I'm on mile 10, I got 3.1 more to go, you know. And so it's not just making the noise, it's a change of the way I make noise and change of the way I breathe and being able to recognize tension and calm down. And, you know, I had no idea that voice lessons was going to encompass so many different parts of my life. I mean, that was not, the intention was not to help with my stress and anxiety, but that was the result. You know, and it's just been phenomenal. Even my counselor said, my voice lessons have probably done more for my anxiety than my sessions with her, because I love how you're so physiologic and being the nerdy medical person, you know, and then talking about, well, of course you can't breathe if you're using, you know, your scalenes and all this stuff, and just kind of, it became physical rest, ease, over making the noise, actually.
Wow. Well, first off, thank you. I'm honored that My medical professional friend thinks I'm physiological. And a piece of my story is that I did want to do what you just retired from for years, and I still think I would have made a damn good physical therapist.
Amen. Absolutely. I agree.
Just because the rehabilitation process is so I should say the transformation process in any way, shape, and form for a singer, for a human, is, I think, what energizes me, right? And you and I talk a lot about, you know, even when we're working on lyrics of a song together, you know, what's the story behind this? You know, how is this affecting my humanity? And how's that coming out in the sounds that I make? So I'm geeking out, obviously, over all these things that I've known, but to hear, every time I hear you say it out loud, I'm just like, yes, this is what this is for, you know, like, why not? So if you're listening to this or watching this, you know, on our YouTube channel and thinking, oh my gosh, this is the sign that I need to do this. There's so many benefits. And now I kind of want to, if you don't mind, dig a little deeper into your specific specialization at physical therapy. Because as singers, and as this conversation pertains to women in a certain season of life, which is a little more spicy, and right, we've got so much more flavor, right? Because we've lived a certain number of years. What was your specialty as a physical therapist?
I'm also what's called a pelvic floor therapist. So working with men and women who've got issues with their pelvic floor, be it, you know, leaking urine, constipation, pain, so many different realms. And guess what? Breathing is a primary important part of that, of health and health of your pelvic floor. I mean, if diaphragmatic breathing is a cornerstone of good pelvic health. So
how did you see, apart from the breathing, did you find that in your singing you were also applying your own specialization and expertise as a medical professional?
Absolutely. I mean, posture and you know, I tend to keep myself so tense and tight, which again, tension is the killer of voice. And so that the same holds true with pelvic floor. And I would actually use my time taking voice lessons to educate my patients of just talking about how negative tension is, you know. And it's, you know, one of the things early on I remember talking about in my lessons with you of, you know, letting your belly expand. Well, us Americans, we have to keep our tummy tight, our butt squeezed, which is so negative for your voice, and it's negative for your pelvic floor as well. So it's the whole person, and there's all these, we have to do whatever we can to try to keep ourselves happy, healthy, and keep things functioning. And it's not hard. Quit clenching your butt.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's that simple.
Oh my goodness. I mean, we could go on and on about it. I feel like for me personally, in my own health and wellness, as well as a singer and as a voice teacher, there's been so much unlearning a little bit, right? Of even the things you were taught in your profession. I'm sure that in your own professional development as a physical therapist, which is required to keep up with your licensure and all that stuff. Same thing with a voice teacher. There's so much in the research that we're seeing. We were told one way, right? And so we're having to unlearn or relearn. I'm sure that for you, even as a hobbyist singer in this season of life, was there a little bit of unlearning and relearning? And I mean, even in our time together, I can still go back and think of the things we talked about in those first lessons that in my own development and research, and yours as well, have evolved, you know?
Absolutely.
Right, now, and realizing, oh my goodness, Heather's carrying tension in her jaw. I can't keep asking her to open her mouth wider and wider. It's just counterintuitive for her, right? And so, and I think having that grace for each other as we partner together to help you sing in a way that brings freedom and joy, you know. So first of all, thank you. Thank you for your patience with me as I've grown too. What would you say, you know, obviously you work with both male and female patients, you know, but particularly this probably leans a little bit more female heavy in pelvic floor health. Especially as we find ourselves singing in this stage of life. And you know exactly where I'm going to go with this, but if you're listening to this, you probably have either a preconceived notion, I'll even say prejudice, against certain sounds in mature voices. I'll say it that way. And I'm using language that I've heard with other clients that are in their 50s and 60s that I've worked with. Some of the complaints I get is, I have a very wobbly vibrato, or I have like the church grandma, you know, vibrato, or something like that. You know, these are terms that they're using. You're actually a student, you're doing the thing, you're working, and you've had your own challenges that you're still navigating. So as you navigate your own challenges, and even as I say some of those things out loud, you're sitting here smiling and nodding at me if you're watching this on YouTube, you know, we can identify, right, with some instabilities that might happen just because physiologically there's some changes happening in our body too. So let's say for the female singer who's dealing with pelvic floor issues, right? Things are feeling just a little loose. Borrowing from your own medical knowledge, but also from your knowledge as a singer, as a trained singer, what would your first piece of advice be to them? It's almost like we're giving just a little mini voice lesson here. You know, what would your first piece of advice be?
So again, we've kind of talked about before of, you know, tension in our bodies does not help with our singing.
Right.
And tension in our abs and our butt and whatnot does not help the pelvic floor. So, you know, being able to relax and take deep breaths and that, I mean, that probably just, the answer to everything isn't to tighten things up all the time.
Right.
So, and then I think we're also into being tight and tense. We need to learn to relax and let go, and sometimes flexibility is the answer, and that kind of thing. And I think it all kind of works together.
Absolutely. So let loose and let it go.
Let the belly go.
Yes, I know, you're absolutely right, especially when it comes to the belly. Oh my goodness. Yes. What is one of your favorite singing moments since you started taking voice lessons?
Golly, there's so many. I mean, to do like little snippets, my son and I did a duet of Mary Did You Know? I mean, that was beautiful. We did another couple duets. I think when I feel like I completely nailed Sail Home, and I felt like I did it with power, with confidence. And when, you know, we're supposed to stand and take the applause, I was sobbing because I was like, I am really proud of myself. And I think that's one thing that voice lessons has done. Not that I can hit a higher note, which I can. I have given myself more grace as well. That, you know what, even if I did screw up that song and didn't perform it as well, I was still getting applause. I was still proud of myself. So I think like that song, finishing it was huge, just because of the psychological stuff, but just realizing too, like I said, voice lessons, one of my successes in general is giving myself more grace in everything.
Gosh, we need that so badly. So badly. What would you say, it may have been that moment, but if there was another moment where you faced some really hard frustrations, be it in the voice lesson, be it life circumstances that were influencing the voice lessons, and how did you navigate those challenges?
So I have been dealing with some stresses at work. And I take it home with me. You're not supposed to, but I do. It keeps me up at night, not supposed to, but it does. But when I'm performing with my fellow students, it's a family there. It's not just me and Melissa and I, it's Melissa and I and all my friends that I see a couple times a year. And when I'm on the stage and I'm performing, work what? I don't work. Right now, today, I'm a performer. And I have people in the audience who love me, whether I'm related to them or not. And it's just such a beautiful experience. And I get off the stage, and again, I feel so wonderful. I used to live down the street, and I moved to Chesapeake, which is quite a ways from here. It's at least an hour drive, and that's with no traffic through the bridge tunnel. And I remember talking to my fiance, now husband, and I said, you know, I think I'm gonna stop doing voice lessons. He said, no, you're not.
Oh, thanks, Richard.
Because, well, first of all, because we can do it virtually. If I had to be in here every time, it would be difficult. But since we're doing it virtually, because he can see the change in my whole everything. You know, I'm going in, I was like, yeah, I'm going to my voice lesson. I love my voice lesson. And then I'd come out of my voice lesson, I'm like, yeah. So I mean, it is, who needs drugs? I just need Melissa.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I'm so grateful. So grateful for Richard. Thanks, Richard. No, that's amazing. What would you, well, first off, I'm just so grateful for you. I'm going to do another little brag session on Heather. I mean, Heather has been with me from the inception of NBC Performance, as it's known here in Eastern Coastal Virginia. But you embody a lot of the journey that, you know, the singer that it starts off as a hobby, starts off as self-care, and it turns to so much more, you know. And so I've seen that growth in you and continue to see it. I'm excited for you to see how your voice training in this new chapter of your life in retirement, how that's going to enhance your life, your singing, you know, like what new sounds and nuances are we going to be able to uncover together, because it's a whole different lifestyle shift, right? And which plays a part, you know, in the way that we sound and the way our body reacts as well. To the person who's on the fence, right, and who thinks it's too late for me. You know, maybe I'll get my kids through it and then I'll do it for me. Maybe they're just waiting. What would your biggest piece of advice be for them?
I'd say go for it. I mean, where my journey started and where my journey is now is completely different than what I expected. And just take a couple lessons. And I really seriously only thought I would do it. Oh, let me do it a year and then I'll give it up. Well, no. And it's just so fulfilling in so many ways, and plus Melissa's amazing. And it's nice to spend time with someone. We lift each other up. But if you're on the fence, like I said, you don't have to take a gazillion lessons. I mean, wanted to do ballroom dancing at one point before I got married the first time. We loved it. But to start ballroom dancing, you had to like buy thousands of dollars of lessons straight up front. And that, we were like, we'd probably end up spending that thousands of dollars, but we didn't want to start with that. And so that's what's beautiful with, and I swear she didn't ask me to say this, is that you don't have to take a zillion lessons to see whether you like it or not. You might take it and you're like, yeah, whatever. Or you might take it like me and go, wow, that isn't what I expected and so much better than I thought. And there's so much flexibility with the lessons, and it's just so good for so many different parts of my body. And if you're on the fence, try a little bit and then maybe change. I mean, I cannot say enough how grateful I am for my voice lessons, and it's not just for singing.
Yes. Amen to that. So many benefits, right? So thank you again for Heather. And I am so excited to see what this year brings you.
Me too.
And don't just take it from me. You heard it from my friend herself, who's living the dream, living the retirement dream.
Right. And I'm a rotten liar, so if I was lying to you, you'd know it.
I love it. Thank you again, my love.
You're welcome.